Welcome in. It is Tuesday here on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. Hope you're well. Nice to have you with us. Thank you for starting your day with us. I am Gary Williams. And of course, we can't do what we do here at 5 Clubs without our great presenting sponsor, Century Insurance, right by you. And of course, our other sponsors, including Peter Millar, Golf Pride, and Pinehurst, 3 great North Carolina-based companies. And of course, our home is right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Somebody who resides here is going to join me at the bottom of the hour. And you associate him with another sport, but he's heavily invested in the game of golf. He'll explain that. And also, I cannot wait to talk to Andy Roddick, who is that person, about a lot of things, because the pursuit in an individual sport, it's great, but it's also challenging. Also, Jaime Diaz, the great historian and writer, contributor to Golf Digest and Golf Channel, is going to join me as well. You know, there's a great bunker at the old course at St. Andrews called the Principal's Nose. Well, Jaime's going to be with us throughout the year. He's the principal who knows, so he will be with me as well. Tonight, it's week 2 for TGL, and I'm not going to sit here and talk at great length about TGL. We did that last week. We had Scott Van Pelt, who is kind of the head of, he's P.T. Barnum, taking you inside the big top for the network that's covering it. But Tiger's going to play tonight. And a lot of people last week were like, why wouldn't you have Tiger? My position was, why would you have Tiger? You know, based on what was an additional year of the build, that you were going to have a good audience, and it was reflected in the ratings. They had a very good opening night on a Tuesday for simulator golf in the middle of the wintertime. It was great, right around 1 million people. I expect that to continue. Why? Because he's him. And the thing about Tiger, which has been interesting as somebody who spent, you know, half of my career covering all sports, and then I narrowed my focus when I went to Golf Channel for the first time in January of 2011, is who he is and what he means and why he's always been the stickiest athlete in the sport. And the thing about golf is that golf has always had great comfort in the narrow lane that it's resided in. It's a very affluent lane, but it's narrow. And you can go back more than 100 years. The reason why Francis Ouimet beat Ted Ray and Harry Vardon in September of 1913 is because Ray and Vardon were coming over here to basically barnstorm and sell stuff. Because you know what golfers have always been? Good pitchmen. And whether it was Vardon and Ray, and then obviously Bobby Jones and what he did, he sold a lot of Coca-Cola. And he went to Hollywood and he made films because he was telegenic and he was regal and he had a nobility about him. And then of course it was Arnold Palmer. And Arnold was the guy who came right out of Central Casting. And I said to myself, and I stole this line from my dad because I was with my father the first time that I saw Arnold Palmer, and it was at the Greater Greensboro Open up the road from Charlotte, up I-85, and my dad pointed at him and he said, that's the John Wayne of golf. And he had kind of evolved and morphed into John Wayne, but when he burst onto the scene in the late 50s after winning the U.S. Amateur in 1954, he was more like Steve McQueen. He was the guy. And then there was color television. You're like, this guy is too good to be true. And Jack was Jack, and first it was Fat Jack, and then he blew dry his hair, and then he started wearing pastels. And Jack was so good, it didn't matter what he looked like, you were going to watch. And then the electronic age really exploded, and here comes Tiger. And you know what else came along almost simultaneously, just preceding him by a little bit? A little thing called Golf Channel, which they celebrated their 30th anniversary last week. Officially, it will be this Friday, which is January 17th. And so here is this fledgling little network, and here is this sinewy little kid from Cypress, California, who really burst through the screen. Ungodly speed, and he probably weighed 140 soaking wet. And you know what he also did? He emoted. And the things that happened subsequently after Tiger started winning U.S. Juniors and U.S. Amateurs, and then he won for the first time in 1997 or 1996 in Las Vegas, and then he won at Disney before the end of the year. And then the Masters happened, and he won by 12. And I'll never forget that Saturday when he was paired with Colin Montgomery, and Colin suggested, well, you know, he's just a guy. He wasn't just a guy, because when they were walking up the 18th green and Tiger had shot 65 and separated himself by what felt like light years, Colin Montgomery stumbled into the media room, and what he kind of tried to explain was, I just saw the future, and I'm not in it. It was Tiger's world, because he took golf from this narrow, affluent lane and bursted onto what was the global cultural autobahn. And what he did after that was create things in golf that didn't exist before. It wasn't an accident that the World Golf Championship Series was created in 1999, because it was like, how can we get this guy in other places around the world and tie in other golf federations and kind of anchor it around the United States and the PGA Tour? You know, by the way, back it up just a little bit. Michael Jordan was the guy. He was the guy not only in basketball, he was the guy who sold more stuff, and he was the deity. He was the sports deity. Michael didn't accidentally go to the Ryder Cup in 1997 at Valderrama because he's like, yeah, I like golf, and Davis Love kind of turned me on to the game. It was Tiger's first Ryder Cup. And oh, by the way, the FedEx Cup playoff series, which started as something that was an extension beyond what was the regular season on the PGA Tour. And it was like, how do we take this golden goose and squeeze out a couple more golden eggs from this guy during football season? Let's create a series in September. And here is TGL, and here he is at 49 in an advancing age, riddled with countless injuries and ailments and almost life-threatening situations like he had after winning the Masters in 2019 with the car accident. How can we create something where he can hit some more golf shots and people are going to watch? Because none of this stuff happened arbitrarily. It happened because he is who he is. And when I had Brendan Porath on the show yesterday, and he said, you know, he's still the most important guy, and we don't even know if he's going to play at all this year, and it's true. And John Hawkins, who's a very good golf writer, doesn't write much anymore. He was the one who said many years ago, he doesn't move the needle, he is the needle. And one little anecdote to understand for all the people, for all the years after the creation of social media, who would pepper me saying, why are you showing him when he's not in contention? Because he's him, and people watch. The highest rated quarter hour, and I don't know if it held up over the course of the entire existence of Morning Drive, was Tiger Woods on Morning Drive at Oak Hill in 2013 to the PGA, hitting shots on a range with a golf club under his armpit. It was the highest rated quarter hour in the history of the program. And I didn't need to know, because I was reminded constantly by our management, never forget, balls in the air are more valuable than fannies and chairs, meaning me, the gas bag, talking about the game, as opposed to the people who play it. He played it better than anybody. He jumped through the screen. Tonight, he's back on the screen. The guy who covered him and was inside really the beginning of all of it and has covered it all, Jaime Diaz. What does the next decade mean for this guy? How much can he play? What's most important to him? He will join me, and as I mentioned, Andy Roddick as well is going to join me in studio for the last half hour of the program to talk about the pursuit of something that you do alone, the great rewards and also the challenges. It's 9 minutes past the hour. It's Tuesday. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, and thank you again for making us a part of your day, not only here on Golf Channel, but on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM. We're just getting started. We're back right after this. Back in on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. It is 12 minutes past the hour. I'm Gary Williams. Nice to have you with us, not only on Golf Channel, but also on the PGA Tour Radio Network. And this segment is being brought to you by Pinehurst, appropriately for the guy who's going to join me in a moment. If you want to have a great day or days, there's no better place than to go to the cradle of American golf, and that is the Pinehurst Resort. They are always adding more things to make your experience better. The next thing, the cottages at Pinehurst number 8, the first on-course offerings that they have. You can inquire right now at Pinehurst Resort because they're going to be available this spring. Like I said, he knows it well. It's where he makes his home. He's not there today because he's out doing what he's done for decades, and that is find stories and tell those stories. He's a great writer, historian, contributor to Golf Digest and Golf Channel, and that is Jaime Diaz. I call him the principal himself because he knows. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making the time. I mentioned before the break, look, you not only saw it as an observer, whether it was from afar, but you saw it intimately, the beginning of the journey for Tiger. And here we now sit. He just turned 49. He's going to play golf tonight in an indoor arena with a lot of technology. He is part of this thing with respect to being a founder, having real skin in the game. We'll get to specifically this thing, but let me ask you, as you look at the next 10 years of his life, what do you think it's going to mean, and what do you think we will see it, or him specifically, be involved in that's going to stimulate him and satisfy him?
Well, I think TGL is a big thing. I think he could, help revolutionize the way golf is consumed. That's, I think, really important. I do think he'll become just probably the most revered elder that golf's ever seen. I do think he likes the idea of imparting his wisdom now, especially when the battle is over. And I think you're already seeing that. I just saw a video with a lesson that a kid named Grant Horvat, who does really nice YouTube work. And he had Tiger give him a lesson. And you could just see the accumulated knowledge that Tiger was imparting. And, he's so obsessed with the why of the golf swing and the why of how to win and the why of everything that is related to competitive golf. And I think, he's got some secrets and, he's held on to them really tight. But I think once it's over, as far as the battle, I think he'll be one that wants his legacy to be one that gave back, not be like Hogan. Hogan gave a great book, of course, but he was always reticent to verbalize it. And I think Tiger will be a little more willing to verbalize, certainly with players who ask him things, but I think with the public and especially with the media that's out there now, I think you'll see some of the greatest lessons ever from Tiger.
I told my kids when they were starting school, the best question you can ever ask is why? And he's, like you said, he's always asked that question. That question can be debilitating to golfers, and he's done a lot of deconstruction and reconstruction of the golf swing and the pursuit of thought and how to do it, and did it right after doing something historic in 97 to reemerge at the end of 99. Why do you think, what is the overarching reason why he's asked that question more than anybody and lived to not only give the answer, but do it better than anybody?
Well, I think because he got such a great early start in the game and he had such an innate interest in doing it well. And I think he's been winning, obviously. I don't think, it's a fact. He's been winning since he was 7, 8 years old. And I think that mystery of how to do it that's been out there forever, he wants to solve that. And, that involves everything. That involves the emotional, the psychological, the physical, the technical of the golf swing. And I think he's so proud, and he knows he's a genius. I mean, he doesn't talk about it, but he is. And why not, exploit that to the ultimate and get it as nailed down as possible. It's a lifetime achievement, and the life goes on. He's at this stage now where he can't play very often, but I still think he wants to squeeze whatever he has left out of it. And then after that, as I said, I think really try to be the person who can, perceive and convey the game better than anyone. I think Tiger expanded the parameters of the game more than anyone. I mean, he's the first player who you could kind of legitimately say had everything in terms of every facet of the bag, driver through putter, great at everything. If he wasn't, he made it a strength. That had never been conceded before as even possible. So I think Tiger is about breaking boundaries, and one of those boundaries will be getting closer to the why.
Jaime, you used the word reticent a couple of minutes ago. I would also use the word cryptic. Nobody's been asked to say more, but yet he managed to say a lot less through the years. But now he's sharing, like you mentioned with Grant Horvat, doing that and having real relationship with people, imparting knowledge. Did you think, whenever it was, 35, 45, 65, that there would be a component to him that would be unlocked where he would share to the degree that he now is?
Yes, I did, because the easiest thing to talk to Tiger about was always golf, the golf swing, the mysteries, all the things that he, was trying to solve. And that's when he felt comfortable. If it was personal, if it was anything else, that was media driven in any way, he was not that interested. And he was trying to keep his private life private because that was a hard thing to do as a young guy, especially when, all the attention was being foisted on him. But the golf is just something that he loves and something that he's obsessed by. And so I think it's a natural conversation. And I think that's why he loves being out there and love being out there with the PGA Tour champions, is talking to the guys about that stuff. It's just something that is ongoing. They're out there because they still love it after 50. And Tiger will be even, I think, more enthused about it because the clock's ticking. The injuries have taken their toll. And this is one more opportunity to really engage in that thing he loves the most and share it with others. And so I'm not surprised. I do think that the extra step will be going public with more of it, and not just speculation on my part. But I think he'll enjoy it, and I think he'll be proud of his legacy if he does it.
We didn't see this 5 years ago, the fracturing of the men's professional game with a rival league. And that now has thrust him into a front-facing role in terms of trying to fortify, secure the future of the PGA Tour. But you add the design component. And he's going to get commissions. Now he's wading into a very highly competitive environment with great competition that is out there doing design. And then there's this other thing called television. What do you think will fulfill him the most of all the opportunities he's going to have, which are plenty?
Wow. I do think it'll be related to the game itself as far as, understanding how to play it best. That's still, I think, the closest thing to his heart. The other things expand his brand and make a ton of money, and that's great. And I think TGL will be, if it takes off, that's obviously the jury's out, but made a good first impression. But if that, especially as the golf environment in the public world changes, as far as people, playing indoor golf, playing it with video screens, etc., I think that'll be something that he could be, kind of a forerunner of what is to come and have real influence. The golf courses, I'm ambivalent about. I never thought of him as somebody who loved the old style above all else, like a Crenshaw does or Jeff Ogilvy. Right. I always thought he just saw a golf course as a problem to solve, and it didn't matter what it was. It wasn't really an aesthetic, kind of appreciation as much as it was, sort of this mathematical kind of problem to solve. And that doesn't mean he doesn't love the golf courses and doesn't appreciate a great one. I'm sure, he loves St. Andrews, he loves Pine Valley, he loves all these things, but I don't know that it's the most fulfilling thing. And it's awfully time consuming, and there's all kinds of travel involved, and you got to walk all these things. I'm not saying he's beyond that, but I don't know that it's his favorite thing. I do think, advancing the game forward in a way, as he did with his game alone, just showing people what was possible. I think advancing the game forward in the way it's played and the way it's consumed, I think that will fulfill him a lot. Having,
had this chapter of doing television, being around guys who were good players, great players, who then, they become analysts. And it's a job. I say that to all these guys. Like, if you want to do this, you got to understand it's tedious. It's a job. You just don't just plop down in a chair and just turn the light on and just start talking. Do you think that he will ever do television, not full time, but a handful of times a year?
Yes, I do. And I think in spots he'll be great, as Jack Nicklaus has been great. Johnny Miller was great, and he sustained it. It was exhausting, as you allude to. It can be a grind as far as the demands and travel and everything else, and the whole week there. But to just go in the booth at big moments and opine on the state of the game, on what he sees in great players. I mean, his observations of somebody like Scotty Scheffler, you understand that extra dimensions that Scotty gives us through somebody who had those extra dimensions himself. And I've often said, the better the player, the more insight into Tiger Woods usually. From Jack to Lee Trevino to Gary to Nick Faldo, all the guys who've won a lot of majors, they understand Tiger best. And so Tiger understands the game at the highest level best and conveys it beautifully when he's been in the booth. I think he'd enjoy that. And again, not in a regular way, but in a special way. And I think every time he did it, he'd make those occasions very special.
Jaime, last thing, I chided you when you came up with that term micro strike. I then bogarted it. Let me just say this. If he has another one and his body cooperates, whether it's this year, over the next 3 to 5 years, where would be the place that you think he could wake up the echoes? And I'm not saying win, but suspend the unimaginable or the believable for at least a couple of days?
Well, I think one, would not be the ultimate, but it'd be really satisfying to him, would be the Senior Open in 2026 at Scioto, where Bobby Jones won in 1926 the U.S. Open, and was Jack's home course where he grew up. And of course, he wants to break Jones's record of the USGA championships. He's tied with him at 9, and that would be 10. But I think among the 4 majors, as Watson did at the Open Championship in 2009, and Tom Watson, and you know. Congratulations to Stuart Sink, but it would have been wonderful if Tom had won. I think Tiger could do that, definitely, because that involves all the nuance of playing in the wind and flighting the ball, and getting the run that probably he would need as far as distance. Of course, Augusta is always out there, but that course just keeps getting longer and tougher to, I think, negotiate if you're not hitting it really far and high. Mm-hmm. And I think the Open Championship will give him that best venue to pull some kind of incredible miracle out. That would be, once again, his greatest win ever.
Jaime, thanks so much. For everybody out there, you can look forward to a lot of Jaime here, because we want, hopefully, the smartest conversation we can have about all aspects of the game. He's the guy right there. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Gary. Take care.
All right. Jaime Diaz, contributor to Golf Digest and Golf Channel. When we come back, the Australian Open is going on right now, and I don't know whether he likes the idea that he's still the last American to win a Grand Slam title. Well, he's going to be sitting right there in a couple minutes, and he is truly invested into the game of golf. Why is that? Andy Roddick in studio on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel right here, right after this. We are back. It's 28 minutes past the hour on this Tuesday. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. And the guy who's joining me now is somebody who's got very good style, as does Peter Millar. In this segment brought to you by the leading apparel brand, not only in golf, but really for anybody when it comes to performance to luxury. It is Peter Millar. And I'm speaking of the 2003 U.S. Open champion. He got to world #1. He's the last American man to win a Grand Slam title. I don't know whether he likes that or not. He's probably shocked that that thing hangs around him. That, of course, is Andy Roddick. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you, Gary. This is congrats on the show. This is awesome.
Thank you. You were first of all, you came on my One Up podcast when I was at Golf Channel formerly, and you were at your home in Charlotte, and I was down in Orlando. You've been in this studio before. You sat with Johnson Wagner and Brendan Young. Thank you for making the time. And for people who may not know, you really have an affinity for golf. And it's not just, I always tell people, anybody who plays golf, watches golf, thinks about golf, you're investing in it because you're taking time, which is the most precious thing. But you are an owner of a golf facility along with some other people, Sweetens Cove, one of the great fun factories in the world, in the In-Town Golf Club. You're wearing the logo on your hat this morning, which is a urban golf experience. Do you remember the first golf ball you hit?
I was probably pretty young. I just, listen, everyone hits those couple of good shots, hear a couple of good jokes on the golf course. I heard someone explain the thing that I'm attracted to in golf so well last week. I was sitting down and they said it's like a microwave for relationships. And I thought that was such a clever way to put it. When I retired from tennis, I was a 5-day-a-weeker, just the availability to become better at something and not give up the process just because I quit the former thing. It's been really good to me in kind of my post-tennis life.
We've got a few photographs, and you're going to notice that there's one person other than Andy in all these. We're not going to mention his name because it's just not worth it. But I mentioned Sweetens Cove. I went there for the first time about 1.5 years ago, and I was blown away. I was blown away by an environment created for people. That's not it. That Ian Baker Finch, who's been one of the sensible voices in the game. That's you with him and a couple other people. Like I said, they don't deserve the mention of their name. And there's Sweetens right there. Rob Collins in the middle, the co-designer of the golf course. Johnson Wagner on the right with his brother TJ. Yeah. And Drew Holcomb, great musician in that photograph. Yeah. You mentioned it's a microwaving of relationships, the fellowship, the nourishment that you get from the game of golf. When did that start to really take hold for you?
Well, there's just no other place in adult life where you will spend 5 hours with a stranger socially and pretty isolated, right? It just doesn't happen. It's like we take it as people that are involved in the golf community. I think we take that as normal, and you put it in any other part of adult life, and it's completely irrational and not normal. I love it. I think it's great. The fellowship is certainly not something that is afforded as easily in tennis. When you're navigating 5 hours in the heat and the physicality of that. So I was certainly attracted to it. A lot of my best relationships in life, post-career, are because of golf, and so I'm certainly a fan. Makes it seem too simple. I do love golf.
Yeah, the in-town golf club thing, we've seen the advent of a lot of things that are outside of the traditional green grass experience. Why did you looked at in town, and there was the first facility was Atlanta, and then Charlotte right here, and I'm proud to call myself a member of the in-town golf club, and Philly and Columbus, and more are online. Why do you think it's working? Why do you think it will work?
Well, there was the ability to play simulator golf was out there, but it's not really what it is. All the parts of the fabric of relationships that we talked about, there was no way to take that and to make it a less expensive membership, but still tap into that social aspect of it, an elevated experience. My wife actually is involved in the design team of In Town, and you want it to feel elevated. You want it to feel like a club experience, right? You don't want to have to beg for a reservation at dinner. You want it to feel the design to feel elevated when you walk in. But all those little touch points, when it's we say no matter the weather is one of our slogans. But kind of just creating that camaraderie. Full-time pro, you can get club fitting. You can do a million things that you would do besides put it in the air for 5 hours, which my wife isn't always thrilled about when I tell her the timeline for my day.
I'll never forget my best friend. We went on a little trip with my wife and his fiance at the time, and we were going to play in like a 2-day event at the Homestead, a wonderful little stately hotel in the mountains of Virginia. And she's like, "When are you going to be back?" And before he could answer, she's like, "Because you'll be back in an hour." And he's like, "No, probably 6." And I thought she was going to decombust.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about what we're seeing with golf is that whether it's 9 holes, like Sweetens Cove, look, people don't go there to play 9 holes. They go to the play 99 holes.
Yeah.
But doing things that give you, a thread into the game, but there's an expedience to it that allows you to do other things. And that's why I think a lot of this stuff is sticky and why it's taking hold with people.
Yeah, and the other thing I think is if you're 23, 24, getting off to the start of your work life, I don't know that you have 6 hours a day to play. And then when let's say you're moving on, maybe you don't move as well as you used to, In Town's a great option. You're not having to walk around, but you still get the feel of hitting good shots and all that. So if something appeals to when you're just out of college, and it appeals to someone who maybe you can't play 18 on real grass anymore for whatever reason, that seemed like a win to me.
Last thing on Sweetens, like I said, I went there for the first time. There's certain things, there are ingredients that you need. You've got a guy in Matt Adamski who is like the greatest P.T. Barnum guy to make you feel like, hey, today I'm part of this, and like we're all going to share this together. But yourself and Tom Nolan and Peyton, how did you know that this thing was going to work to the degree that it has? Because it is truly the melting pot, I think, of American golf.
Yeah, that's nice of you to say. I don't think I knew it was going to work. I think I knew that I wanted something fun to do with the aforementioned names. There didn't seem to be a lot of downside. Rob Collins had done an amazing job of creating this fun place where you could get a look at really intense architecture for golf, but not the price point of some of the other high-end public offerings. So there was some magic there. I think it was more bookkeeping that was keeping it. And you talked about Adamski, just recently named Retailer of the Year. He moves a lot of product out of that shed. So we're certainly very grateful for him. But I don't know that I knew it was going to work. I think the 9-hole part was amazing. The fact that I think it's one of the first golf courses that social media built with all the way that it was playful and it was fun. We've had people put their tents out on the first tee, and then they're like, we can just unzip and hit it, and Matt will be like, yeah, I'll be in an hour. So I think just something that's differentiated, and it's not a certain type of golf experience versus another type of golf experience. Like, it's a big tent in golf.
It really is. You move up, play with a group you don't even know,
Correct.
drop back, take a couple hours off, eat some food. It's a singular experience. We're going to take a break. When we continue, the singular pursuit of being a professional athlete. You may have a team, but you got to do it alone. I want to ask Andy about the benefits of that, but also the challenges, because obviously it's relatable to what golfers have to deal with, and also dealing with what's next as well after a career is over. Andy Roddick, former world #1, the last American man to win a Grand Slam title, is with us in studio. It's 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. We're back right after this. We are back. It is 41 minutes past the hour. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel alongside Andy Roddick, member of the International Tennis Hall of Fame. I think you were class of 17. Is that right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. Before we're done, I do have to ask you about one match you played, because I know how challenging it was for you at the end. I've never been more invested and more let down by the result. I think you know the match I'm talking about. There's a lot of things I could ask you about when it comes to pursuing something by yourself. And you can have great parents, great support, great friends, but at the end of the day, you got to do it. What was a great reward of doing it alone, and what was the hardest part of doing it alone? Because golfers live in that same environment.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it because there's nothing unfair about tennis, right? There's just nothing unfair. It's like you're either good enough or you're not, right? And similarly with golf maybe even more, just because you can get the good side of weather on a tee time where, you get, one afternoon it's good, then you come back the next day, maybe you get the good side of weather. There are some things that are unfair about golf. In tennis, it's the same conditions for both players. You go out there, you let it rip, and the chips really fall where they may. Conversely, it's tough when you're not having a great day. You really can't pass the ball. I always say tell some players that I'm jealous, because when I retired, I had still won 2 out of my last 5 tour events, but I just didn't think that I could win a major anymore. I didn't think I could kind of maybe get that rush of blood and make something fun happen. But if I was in the NBA, I would have loved the opportunity to go to a new market and be the third option, and really I could still be effective. That doesn't exist in tennis, and I'm jealous of the sports where that can exist, where you can still have an opportunity to win the biggest prize, even though maybe you're not the best player in the world.
It's interesting. I wonder, with tennis, you look at the draw and you look at who you might play, and then you ultimately do play, and it's a half a dozen guys you got to go through in a slam. With golfers, I know, and Brooks Koepka actually audibilized this. I remember I was sitting right there in 2019 at the PGA, and he said, look, I got to beat a dozen guys. And it's like, wow, that takes a lot of chops to say that. And there's 156 in the field. But everyone kind of looked around and went, yeah, he's kind of right. What's the difference, though, between knowing who your competition is, where with golf, you get out there and the competition's really the environment. It's the setup of the golf course. Like you said, it's different. What is the most different thing about knowing I got to beat this guy, his style against mine, whereas with golfers, you look at the field, but you've got to handle the next hole?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One thing that we don't have to deal with in tennis is no one can just get a hot putter, right? We're not dealing with someone who's just draining 30 or 40 footers, right? Where the process up to that matters less if someone's just got their eraser out, right? Got their score eraser out. So that's one thing that the best golfer in the world can play a perfect round. Someone, gets out of a bunker, dunks one, makes 3 putts, and all of a sudden you may have lost that day, right? Conversely, in tennis, the best players, best minds in the world can take a scalpel to you physically, right? I don't move well this way. I don't like it short in the court this way. I always say I played the same point against Roger for 10 years. He hit that short little chip back in, and I had a decision to make whether I was going to come in or stay back. Neither was a good option. I think I won 48% of those points, and it manifested in a 3-21 record. So it's just the ability to impose yourself on someone in tennis with physicality, with length of match, with X's and O's versus having a clear head, knowing what's in front of you, hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4. We don't have that benefit in tennis, but we also don't have the magic eraser to deal with.
Yeah, you mentioned Federer, and look, I wanted to get into sports in any way because I was totally captivated by the performance. And one of the things is the things that you feel. And there are certain athletes in my lifetime that seemed inevitable, that the results seemed inevitable. You had to live through a period where it wasn't just one guy, it was a couple. Federer seemed inevitable. I think Scheffler is getting to that place. As a competitor, did you feel that? Did you feel, and did all of your contemporaries feel like, I can be as good as I can be, but there's this sense that at the end, it's going to be him, kind of like Djokovic then took from him.
Sure. I think what it is for every person on tour, except for maybe, Rafa, Novak, Roger, Murray doesn't get thrown in there enough, and he should, because he had an unbelievable career, especially for that pocket in time. Not the longevity of those guys, because his body gave out a little bit. But every other player outside of those, I thought, if I play well, I'm going to win. And with the greats, two things they do. They force you to up your risk profile, right? So I can't just stay into neutral rallies with those three and expect for it to go my way. So I have to take more risk. Maybe in golf, it's the same way. If you're playing against Tiger, you almost have to play irresponsibly to try to outscore him. And the other thing is they just ask the question consistently, for the course of 4 or 5 hours. There's just no dips, right? And I always say those three especially. I played tennis, I held a racket, I hit shots. For those three, it felt like the racket was an extension of their hand, right? It felt like it was part of it, like it melted into their palm. So absolutely, with those guys specifically, I knew I had to play well, and maybe they had to crack a little bit. And it becomes matchups, right? Like I had a better record against Novak than I did against Roger. Doesn't mean that, I think Novak has the best resume of all time. Yeah. But at a certain point, it just becomes matchups, similar to some players don't like hitting a draw. They don't play as well at the Masters, or courses affect players a little differently. But those best players, they can affect you negatively, which is a whole nother thing.
Were you always comfortable with confrontation? Because to me, tennis, there's an intimacy to the competition, and you got to deal with that person 2, 3, 4 hours. Golf is not so much like that, and they have team competitions, and I think guys like Patrick Reed, I think he finds comfort in discomfort. A guy like Ben Crenshaw, who you spent some years in Austin, he's the most cerebral, pleasant, sweetest guy. He never won in a playoff, and I don't think that was accidental. He didn't like confrontation at all. Did you always have some comfort with confrontation?
I wasn't scared of it. I think I was okay with it. I probably was better at confrontation than I was trying to hit a backhand. So yeah, I think that's just the nature. It's so weird, Gary, though, because from the time you're 7, 8, 9 years old, it's just what you do. You go out there and you're against one person, and you don't often get into words. It doesn't happen that much, but it's just I thought it was normal forever to be in the same locker room before a Wimbledon final and be 20 yards away from the person for 3 hours leading in. And you tell that to other people in sports, maybe even golf has a full locker room the last day. You walk into a locker room on a Grand Slam final, there's literally 2 people in there, right? It's a weird experience, and I tell that to other athletes, like that's so awkward. I'm like, I guess it is. Like with more space, I realize how psychotic tennis is.
We're going to take another break with Andy Roddick. When we come back, we'll get him out of here with 5 quick questions to go. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. We continue with you on this Tuesday morning right after this. It is 52 minutes past the hour. Back in with Andy Roddick, and I'm going to get you out of here with 5 quick questions, and we got a little surprise for you. The last club you threw, are you a club thrower? Did you have a stretch in your golf career that you ever tossed some clubs?
Yeah, I think I've grown out a lot of out of a lot of my petulant behavior, so it's probably been a long time now. But there's probably like a 5-iron in the woods somewhere.
Okay. Is Bob Costas your dog still alive?
He is.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, he's 12. Bulldogs don't live till they're 12, and he's still cruising.
Well, because he's Bob Costas. If you replace him at any point in your life, name the breed and the famous broadcaster you will name the dog after.
I don't know if it would be a broadcaster. I like our dogs to have first and last names, just because when the vet calls and they say Bob Costas is ready to be picked up, it's endlessly hilarious. I'm thinking maybe it's going to be a bulldog. We love bulldogs. Maybe Otis Redding, maybe a tip of the cap somewhere along
I love that.
I think a bulldog named Otis would be funny.
All right, I don't know if your wife is watching. She'll get over it because she won't be bothered by this. The girl you passed your first note to in class, and where is she now?
No idea where she would be now. I used to carpool with someone named, and I guess the name is a coincidence, or just having this realization that her name is Brooke also, so maybe that's a thing. Brooke Holland is probably like 3rd grade.
All right. An item that you would buy at the grocery store that you can't just go and check it out yourself. You would have to go to the cashier that you would be awkward about buying.
I wouldn't be awkward about buying anything.
Anything?
No problem. Wife says go get, no problem.
Okay. Do you ever go to the cashier, or are you strictly a self-checkout
No,
guy?
I like the interaction.
You do?
Like, I'm still the person who goes through the line at Starbucks instead of calling ahead. I don't know why. It makes you feel like you're living a little bit. I don't know.
Okay, last thing, the golfer, and you watch some golf, who you think based on their body language and the way that they comport themselves, that you think could be a competent tennis player?
Well, I've played with Sergio. He's a really good player.
Yeah, I've seen him.
Cooch is a good player.
Yep.
I've seen Scheffler play pickleball. I think the only match that Ben Johns, who's the top pickleball player, has ever lost, he was with John Isner, and I told John Isner, I don't know how you lost to, your partner was Ben Johns, and you lost to a golfer in pickleball. I don't know how that happens. We'll have to have John back on Served podcast to get the answer for that.
Yeah, and I will say this to end. I know you have great friends that you play golf with. We have a little video. This is just an example of the people that he shares company with. This is you. I don't know how recently this was at the golf club at Tennessee, and you were on the tee, and somebody is handing you.
Oh no, I don't like that. I know exactly who that was. That was my buddy Nat Turner, who has this weird thing with snakes, and as you can see, I don't like snakes. That was best case scenario for Nat, because that was dangerously close to ending in a fist fight.
I don't like anything without shoulders. Snakes, gators.
That's
no
a great.
shoulders,
That's
no
a
friends.
That's a great. I'm taking that line. I like that. Yeah. If you don't have shoulders, I'm not into you.
There you go. Thank you for making the time to come in.
Cheers, Gary. Happy for you.
Thank you so much. And as he mentioned, his podcast, Served, which has gotten off to a fabulous start. Find it on all the digital platforms. We take a break. We come back and wrap it up on this Tuesday right after this. We are back in final moments here. Coming up next, Fairways of Life with Matt Adams right here on Golf Channel. And tomorrow here on the program, the story of Nick Dunlap and the PGA Tour and PGA Tour Enterprises are now embarking on telling stories. They're in a position to do that in a more expansive way now. You know, it's been a long, long time, like more than 3 decades since an amateur won on the PGA Tour. The man who put that story together is going to join me. And also Webb Simpson. Webb actually had a good week at the Sony Open. He's going to join me in studio tomorrow for the final half hour of the program. He is part of the staff of the 2025 United States Ryder Cup team. He has so much experience of being around these teams now as a player and now as a vice captain, and of course a former U.S. Open champion and players champion. Looking forward to talking about Webb Simpson, about the future of men's professional golf. But thank you again to Jaime Diaz to get his perspective on what is next, not only in the immediacy for Tiger Woods, but also over the next several years, and also Andy Roddick. You know, there are people in sports who, the more you hear them, the more you appreciate what they have to say, whatever the subject matter is. Thank you to Andy for coming in and making the time. I look forward to doing that again. For all of us here on 5 Clubs, have a fabulous Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.